It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical, Mainz and Dutch. I'm your host, Mainz, and my colleague, literally in the danger zone in Rainford, it's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
Lots of loud, bright, bangy things going off in the background. It's constant joy. Makes me sad I don't have a dog, just to see how tries it be by these people with their pointless fireworks.
Lockdown, day one for most of the UK has not stopped anyone from firing lots of fireworks into the sky here in East Anglia, and it seems like Rainford also getting its fair share.
Or as someone did call it on Twitter, Locky too.
Locky too. Interesting. I don't really know how to go from there, so we're going to start the show. This week, week 9 is upon us. I think NFL games are still going ahead. There's one going ahead tonight, which could be seen as unbelievable between the 49ers and the Packers, as I'm not 100% sure the 49ers have got any players left. But there you go. What we're going to look at before that, though, is we're going to go into the trade, quickly look at the trade deadline, as nothing happened. And then we're going to look at some mid-season odds, as we are in the middle of the season, and see how much they've changed since the start of the season. And then we're going to go into the usual fancy stuff: fancy darling, fancy loser, and a team of the week. Should we do this, Neil?
I think we should.
I love the fact we got extra noise of banging that sounds like someone's just shutting the door in your house.
This is how good an episode it is. People are already celebrating.
Amazing. Neil, trade deadline happened on Tuesday, and when I say happened, I mean nothing happened. I mean, it did allow us to get Ryan Fitzpatrick in really tight shorts today, but apart from that, not much happened. Why do you think nothing happened?
I think it's because teams, NFL teams, as we know, it's a cocoon. They don't like fresh ideas. They don't like fresh minds coming into it. And if there's one thing they love more than closing the circle and not admitting new members, it's hoarding compensatory draft picks. Now, these teams, then it's the idea of, we could trade him now, but then we get a draft pick that we can't use for months, and we don't want to give the scouts too much to do. Whereas they'll wait, they'll let this player go, and then wait till they get a pick that they can then use almost straight away. Obviously, but again, that's the next year. But they'd rather do that than run the risk of looking stupid by selling essentially a player for a song who goes away and becomes a star, and when they could get more for him by the big money deal he'll sign in free agency. It's trades don't happen an awful lot, and compared to other sports that we follow, I mean, obviously it's got absolutely nothing on deadline day football. Even a lot more movement in cricket than there used to be as well, because now they have like short-term loans and whatnot. Trades are not that common because I think an awful lot of teams follow the Andrew Brandt approach of why don't you want him? Why haven't you re-signed him? Why has he got to this stage and his contract's going to be done? So I think the idea that teams think that, we just need this piece to put us over the top. Well, the last 2 years, the Eagles and deadline day traded for Jannard Avery, who's given them about 37 minutes of production, and the year before Golden Tate, who pretty much hamstrung the offense when he came in because it basically meant everyone had to go and play in a position they weren't comfortable in. So it doesn't often lead to immediate success, and I think teams will say they want those compensatory picks so much in an average year they're not prepared to sacrifice them by letting these players go for them. And also, it goes the other way as well. I mean, if you haven't got the picks, you can't then package them up and move up later. And obviously it's a COVID year, so things are different, and you could trade for someone today, but there's a good chance he couldn't play this Sunday.
Exactly.
And it's a Brian Billickism, where we've traded him for cap space reasons. That's great. What position does cap space play?
Yeah, I think the COVID thing is interesting because obviously there would be a acclimatisation, some isolation period involved that wouldn't help. I think you also don't know that, you probably don't know that person as well as you know the people in your facility. So you're adding an additional person whose habits you don't really know. I think also, something that we've talked about a lot on the show at the start of the season, but haven't really talked about much recently, is cap space in terms of what the salary cap is going to be next year. I think if you're, say, Green Bay, I'm not 100% sure you want to take on Will Fuller's contract with the assumption that you'd then have to give him a new one when you don't know what the salary cap position for the whole league were going to be. I think it's going to drop by 20 odd million at least, you would assume. So you don't necessarily want to be taking on additional resources. I think teams are, as you said, a lot more frugal with draft picks than they used to be, say, when we first started watching the NFL, Neil. Or when you first started watching the NFL, we started watching it together. People weren't as bothered about draft picks. It didn't seem then anyway. I think they are now. So the fact that no one really got traded doesn't really surprise me. I also think that, if you're bad, a lot of the bad teams are bad because they haven't got talent. So why would I go and get any of them? I know, and then there's, I guess, kind of situations where you could get JJ Watt, for example, but what is the knock-on repercussions of what that means for the Houston Texans franchise with its fans if you lose one of your best players? And I think right now you want all the fans on board, and doing stuff to not allow that to happen is probably going to be a major issue.
What is odd is that apparently the asking price for Will Fuller would have been a second-round pick. I'm sorry, what? Second-round pick for a guy with 8 games to go who's never healthy. I'm good.
But this is always the situation in that kind of situation. A, why do you want to let him go? And B, if you want to let him go, why do you want him so expensive when you don't want him anymore? Do you know, as you said, a second-round pick for 8 games for someone who's never fit is, fool's gold, surely, and not something that Green Bay would ever do.
No. And I say Green Bay aren't big free agent signings. They're not big in trades. So, I mean, I would be, if when he gets to free agency, I wouldn't be surprised if they had a look at him, as I'm sure some teams will. But the idea of, of that, and basically because of the leverage you've had to give up to get him, saying, okay, well, we're going to have to re-sign you then. You want how much? Nah, see ya.
Exactly. Well, as there wasn't much in relation to the trade deadline, let's move on, Neil, and let's start looking at mid-season odds and how they've differed from the start of the season. So Neil thought it'd be a good idea to have a look at where we were at the start of the season and where we are now in terms of certain situations. Maybe use the ones we did, maybe not, but look at how things have changed in relation to certain teams and certain figures. We thought we'd start with Super Bowl. At the time, I think everyone thought the Chiefs would be favourites. They were 6-1. They're now 7-2. So I guess not much change there, Neil, in terms of they're still one of the favourites to win. But they've reduced because everyone's seen that they're actually still good at football.
Yeah, having the all-world quarterback certainly still helps. Their defence has improved. It's got a lot stingier. And also the idea that they look as if they still have many, many gears to go through. It's almost like they're playing to win and get in, and then they'll show their full arsenal when they get to the playoffs.
Staying in the AFC, biggest move I could see in terms of a positive situation was the Pittsburgh Steelers, who started the season at 28-1 and are now second favourites in the AFC at 11-2. We can talk about, if you want, how probably their biggest banana skin is coming up this week against the Cowboys, who we still don't know who's going to be their quarterback. But I think what the Steelers have shown at being 7-0 is that they've got a chance to go all the way this year. Yeah,
it's the best defense in the NFL, and it's not even close. They were gifted last week by the fact that Lamar Jackson did not play well. Obviously, getting a pick 6, I think, was it the third play of the game, certainly helps. It's a worry going forward for Baltimore that this keeps happening in the big games. But yeah, the Steelers did enough, and ultimately, again, it's They're not explosive on offense. They do enough. They grind. They don't get by on big plays, but they don't. You can't get them off the field. So, as I say, they're at the moment. It would have to be a pretty spectacular collapse for them not to win the division and not go deep into the playoffs. The price drop it's justified because they're still unbeaten, and here we are 9 weeks into the season.
If we move to the NFC, the Bucks have moved from 12-1 to 13-2. I think more. Well, I think everyone's remembered that Tom Brady. Or Tom Brady has proven that he's still an NFL starting quarterback of elite stature, but also that defense is mean and supplements and does really well with the offense that it's got.
Are they the most balanced team in the NFL?
I think it's probably them and the Steelers. I think though the offense of the Bucks is better than the Steelers' offense, but I do believe the Steelers' defense is better than the Bucks' defense.
There is a good chance that if this was to be a Super Bowl, it could finish 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to say I wasn't, if we go back to the Steelers briefly, I wasn't tremendously impressed with them against the Ravens on offense. Obviously was on defense. I think for the Bucks, we've done the Antonio Brown thing to death. I really wish they wouldn't have. They have done. Probably don't hope. I hope it doesn't work out. But in terms of the other talent on the field, it's been really good. It's always good to see Rob Gronkowski catch a ball over a 5'10" corner. That always makes me smile. Tom Brady sticking it to a few people. It's always interesting, although I don't think he's ever needed motivation, but it's fun. And if it would be interesting as well is if he could turn Mike Evans into not Mike Allstott with catches.
See, this is the thing. You say like their offense, you look where they're going and look what they've been doing. Mike Evans has done absolutely nothing. Chris Godwin has been in and out of the injury. Their leader in receiving yards is Scott Miller.
Yeah.
It's as you say. They are a very, very good team. Very well drilled. Excellent on defense. Todd Bowles has done an awful lot to repair, if you will, his reputation after his Jets tenure. It's a good team, and it pains me to say it because I despise them, because deep psychological wounds. The title that keeps bringing up.
For those who are unaware, go back to the early 2000s and see that Bucks team and the Eagles team of Andy Reid. Let's move over to the NFC West, Neil, where the Seattle Seahawks have improved greatly from 20-1 to 7-1. Who knew that letting Russ cook and having, possibly the best 1-2 punch at wide receiver in the NFL would be a bonus thing for a team that, isn't used to throwing the ball?
See, on paper, it looks like I was wrong about the Seahawks because I said they would refuse to let Russ Cook go. They would finish 8-8, and they deserve to do it. They have let Russ cook. They're not going to finish 8-8, but I'm terribly sorry. I can be forgiven for thinking Brian Schottenheimer would not change his spots. I can be forgiven for that. It was not an egregiously bad take. I look silly, but I maintain #the process.
Let's be brutally honest. In the takes in the NFC that you got wrong, this one bears no comparison to your Minnesota Vikings take.
Oh God, no.
I thought they would be better and make the playoffs, as I thought the Steelers would. Again, which you said they wouldn't. Anyway, but did I expect Russell Wilson to be this good? Well, no. I knew he was this good, but did I think he'd be allowed to be this good? No. And did I know that DK Metcalf was a centaur brought to us to bring us joy from the wide receiver position? No, I did not. Also now, king of the memes.
The Philadelphia Eagles selected JJ Arcega-Whiteside with DK Metcalf still on the board. That's going to be one of those over the years. That, believe me, I'll bring it up a lot.
In college, the Ole Miss Rebels had DK Metcalf and AJ Brown, and they were shit.
They also have had was it Evan Ingram and Dawson Knox as well. So
Dawson Knox was on the same field as DK Metcalf and AJ Brown, and as I've just mentioned, they were shit.
This is ultimately one of those classic examples of you have to divorce the college production and play with the physical traits they bring. Because as I say, that everyone goes on about that LSU team in 2012-13. Yeah, it had Zach Mettenberger at quarterback. Terribly sorry. You can have Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham. You can have all these people. You've got Zach Mettenberger throwing you the ball.
But at least that Mettenberger made it to the NFL. I don't even know who Ole Miss's quarterback was. I need to speak to the College Chaps podcast. I haven't got a clue. Were they on at 8:30 UK time, BT Sport, the CBS broadcast? No, they weren't. Do you know why they weren't? Because they were shit. So I didn't know DK Metcalf and AJ Brown were good. I didn't know that. But guess what? They are. They're unbelievable players. And DK Metcalf and Russell Wilson is unbelievable. Speaking of Russell
music.
Speaking of Russell Wilson, let's move over to MVP. He started at 8-1, Neil, and now he's 5-6 on. I guess, is it injury? And I don't know, is it only injury that stops him? Because they're going to continue to play like this, I assume. So is it only injury that stops him being MVP?
Well, they're going to have to because the defense sucks. The Yahoo NFL pocket, it's a terrible defense. It is. This is why they have to keep throwing. I mean, yeah, well done. You've signed Carlos Dunlap. It's 2020, man. You know, Charles Robinson, Trez Pale on the Yahoo podcast made this point. If Russell Wilson throws 50 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, but Patrick Mahomes throws 45 and 2, is this really, is the fact that it's just that magic? He got 50, but it's like, yeah, well, this guy, look what he's done as well. I mean, Russell Wilson, as we know, famously has never had an MVP vote.
That's only because Chris Collinsworth didn't have one that year, though.
Yeah, but we have to remember as well that Bobby Wagner has had an MVP vote.
Bobby Wagner, by the way, very good at football.
Very good at football. Best player in the game? No, not now, not ever. Never at one point has it been if you could start a franchise today, who's your one player pick? Nobody has ever, apart from maybe members of his family, no one has ever said, give me a linebacker in 2020.
See, the problem you've got with Mahomes, who's gone from 4-1 to 7-2, so slightly improved odds, is he's just doing stuff he's done the last 2 years, or 2 years ago. So I always think that MVP is like, he's having this breakout season, or this is the best he's ever been. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know Tom Brady won it and Peyton Manning won it multiple times, but each time they won it, it felt like they took another step up. Whereas Mahomes is, look, he's only going to get another 48 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, ho-hum, where people are going to go, holy shizzle, Russell Wilson is actually throwing it to people, and look what's happening.
Do you know, I have a slight issue with what the Chiefs did last week, allowing the Jets to get to 14-9 and then exterminating them. That's cruel. Come on.
No, that's what big brothers do to little brothers, right?
Yeah. That's sorry, you've not gone away. Okay, have this and that and another.
Going the other way, Lamar Jackson's gone from 6-1 to 40-1. I assume that. Well, first of all, he hasn't been great this year. Second of all, I guess in the bigger games, he's played. Lamar's played Mahomes, and last week he played the Steelers. And let's be honest, was crap in both of those games. And also, he seems to have developed, been able to get fights with Brown family members who don't receive the ball enough, which probably doesn't help your MVP case.
It's as you say, his play has been erratic, it's been spotty, he has not taken a step forward as a passer as people thought. We knew that last year his touchdown rate was not sustainable. It'd probably be a case of last season is probably going to be the greatest season we'll ever see from Lamar Jackson. I don't think it's an exaggeration. Do I think he can play better than he is? Of course he can. Yeah, but I don't think he'll ever get those heights again. Now, little problem as well. You know, Marquise Brown is very, very fast and, is something of a playmaker. of his body type, of that type of player, first-round draft picks are not made to look like that in the modern game. He's not going to stand up. He's never going to be a 10 to 12 targets a game, I don't think, on any offense. But the fact is, to only see 2 targets when you're feeding Willie Snead, no. I'm terribly sorry. I don't know whether that's on Jackson or whether that's on the coaching, the play calling. I don't know. Greg Roman's offenses, while they tend to look very innovative at the beginning, tend to get a little bit stale. It happened in San Francisco. It happened in Buffalo. It may be happening now. So I don't know. But if you don't understand betting, Lamar Jackson at 40 to 1 means if you put £1 on Lamar Jackson now to win the MVP, you've lost £1.
Neil, Tom Brady's gone from 15 to 1 to 10 to 1. Is there a situation that he can win MVP?
I think this would need a fall off from Russell Wilson because Russell Wilson's got the magical season going for him, as we said. But if the Bucs win out from here on in, and starting this weekend against the Saints and Drew Brees, if they win out, you've got everyone thought he was finished. You've got the narrative. And, I think there's only been one player who's won MVP playing for 2 different teams. And I think he may have had a slight history with Tom Brady. So I don't know. I think the people would consider it. But I think he needs... I'm not going to say like his last one, where it was Carson Wentz's award until Wentz got injured. Brady was excellent that season and played the whole year. Wentz didn't. So that's why he didn't get it. But he is 4th. He's that next tier. As I said, we've got Wilson and Mahomes, and then you've got the likes of Brady, maybe Aaron Rodgers. I don't think there's anyone else that I'd put into it in the seriousness. I'll
tell you right now, Peyton Manning is calling up every MVP voter and telling them that what Tom Brady did is no big deal, and he thinks Russell Wilson's great. Not that Peyton's competitive with Tom at all in any way.
No.
Let's look at a few divisions, Neil. AFC East. Bills have gone from 27 to 20 to 1 to 5 on. Pats have gone from 13 to 10 to 11 to 2. The New England Patriots, after week 8, are 11 to 2 to win the AFC East. Weirdly, still ahead of the Dolphins, who are 10 to 1. And the Jets are now 1,000 to 1. Just thought I'd say that because it's fun.
No one cares.
No, I do because it's funny, right? 1,000 to 1. When he played half a season. Everyone thinks this. It looks like Vegas believes this is the Bills' division. Is there a situation where it's not?
I believe it is. I believe the situation of that 10 to 1 on the Dolphins looks.
It looks good, right?
Quite tempting. Yeah,
they've got a big game this week. Got a big game this week against Arizona. If they win that game, it's game on, right? Because for those who are unaware, the Bills are playing the Seahawks this week in Buffalo, but still,
I believe that they've put Tua in because they think Tua can elevate the offense. Or that they've got enough pieces around him that he doesn't have to elevate it. He can basically go along his merry way, learning on the job. But their defence, which has been one of the surprises of the season, is strong enough. The supporting cast is good enough that they can win this division. Now, I'm not saying they can, but I'm saying they think they can. And Brian Flores, as one of those coaches that we've seen now, players want to play for him because he does not quit and he wants them to go out and express themselves. My God, though. I don't know what he's got against Jared Goff, but he was bullying the crap out of him with his play calling that last week. Jesus, man, as I point on Twitter, that was some Engage 8 stuff.
No, but at the end of the day, Neil, Brian Flores owns Sean McVay because the last 2 times he's played him, he's absolutely pulled his pants down. Okay, Bill Belichick did the first one, but we could say that's true. But I could also say that Brian Flores was the defensive coordinator, and because he's now backed it up, I have some evidence to suggest that Brian Flores was involved, at least in some way, in the Super Bowl game plan.
There's Ian Hartitz who tweeted out, was it revolutionary idea? Sean McVay without Jared Goff. Who knows what it could look like?
Well, yeah. Yeah, well, it depends who gets in, right? Let's move to the NFC East, because it's funny. Because it's about... The Eagles at the moment need 2-5 on to win this division. Odds on. Cowboys 15-2. Giants 20-1. Basically the same record as the Jets, who were 1,000-1, and the Giants are 20-1. Just throwing that out there. And the football team are 4-1. What I find really interesting about this, Neil, is I did it in alphabetical order. So it's the first time I've ever done it like this, and noticed that the football team are now third, not fourth. But anyway, it's the Eagles' division to lose, according to Las Vegas, and you've got no players, which shows you the level of ineptitude inside this division.
Yeah, do you remember a couple of weeks ago when I said I was going to stop listening to people when they said Carson Wentz was the problem? Do you know what's happened in the 2 weeks since? He's been a bit of a problem. He was atrocious against the Cowboys. I mean, legitimately awful.
That is one of the worst primetime sporting events I have ever seen. How they managed to get 40 minutes worth of highlights and plays onto Game Pass is completely and utterly beyond me. Where did the Cowboys pick up that dude? Was he just off the street? He literally was playing for Mike McCarthy's brother's basketball team 30 seconds earlier and then played quarterback. Jokers.
Yeah. And as I say, the fact that the Eagles allowed them to stick around, I would hope that in the time the Eagles have off, we're going to get some pieces back. Obviously, Jalen Reagor and Dallas Goedert returned. Maybe get Miles Sanders back, get a bit healthier on the line, and maybe just tell Carson Wentz to calm down. Except Carson. Every possession should end with an Eagles foot kicking the ball. Whether that is the kickoff after scoring a touchdown, or punting it away because you've done all you can. Do you know the Eagles lead the NFL in drives of the opponent's drives that start in their own territory? So the Eagles lead the NFL in letting the offense walk off the field with the opposition already virtually in field goal range. The Eagles lead the league in that category. But the defense is not the problem. The problem is the fact that, as I say, the last 2 weeks against two very beatable teams, after being so good against the Steelers and Ravens, Carson Wentz has looked like dog shit. This is something of a problem, and it needs to be addressed. Now, they've come out and said all the stuff you'd expect. You know, did you ever consider sitting Carson Wentz for a series or two, or even the game? No. Did you ever consider maybe that Carson Wentz isn't the starter? No. All very well and good. Is he getting this message? Because if he's getting that message, it might mean he thinks he's untouchable, whereas the message he should be getting is, we consider everything. But, I mean, that rant over, this division's dog shit.
For those who don't like football as well, this week the football team play the Giants. The Giants, with Daniel Jones, have beaten the football team 3 times on the run. This is basically the 3 games that Daniel Jones has won in his entire career. For the love of all that is sacred, football team, will you effing beat the Giants this time, just once? But before we do that, Neil mentioned the McVay-Goff thing. What the McVay-Goff thing split may be is what happens when Doug Peterson and Frank Reich are in different locations.
Maybe. I will say this though, that, just a quick one, and I think it's something we just need to touch on. Daniel Jones is shite, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's 3-0.
Nothing encouraging about his play at all. He is shite,
and he's 3-0 against the football team.
That's a you problem. That is not a.
He's terrible, but there's rumours that the Giants are suggesting. I know it's November, that if they got a high pick, they wouldn't take a quarterback. And when I don't know why I say if they get a high pick, they're 1-7. They wouldn't be taking a quarterback.
Right, if that's already leaking out, why Dave Gettleman still has a job is an issue that needs to be addressed. Because it comes down to this. I keep saying, we've seen already the Cardinals back-to-back years taking a quarterback first. You have to ask yourself, the quarterback you have, is he good enough that I can pass on Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields? Is Sam Darnold good enough that the Jets can say, maybe we'll trade this? No, he's not. Is Daniel Jones good enough for you to say, okay, we can't get Trevor Lawrence, we can get Justin Fields, should we not bother? No, he's not. If the answer to your question is our quarterback good enough to not, if the answer is no, you need to get a new quarterback. The Cardinals have already shown us, you can't do that, you've got to give him time. No, he's crap. We've looked, we've had him in the room, we've seen him in the office. He's crap. He's not going to get better, especially not when a new coach comes in and says, okay, this is my scheme, and I've seen him, he can't run it, I don't want him. Get what you can for him, but get him out of here.
Let's hope the Giants pay no attention to that. Final one here, we want to look at Coach of the Year. Mike Tomlin was 25-1. He's now 6-1. And Brian Flores was 24-1, and now he's 10-1. I assume Tomlin is more likely to win, given the fact he is almost definitely going to make the playoffs.
I think so, and plus the fact we have to retroactively award Mike Tomlin Coach of the Year for each of the last 10 years because of the amount of crap he had to deal with Bell, Ben, and Brown that we, has obviously come out. So he needs to be honoured and recognised for that.
But this is where you sent a text in our group a mere 30 minutes ago, which suggested the Steelers are only 5-4 as double-digit road favourites. That's outright, not against the spread. And one of our friends said Steelers gonna steal it, and he's very right because that happened a lot. But I think, as you quite rightly pointed out, if you had a load of Looney Tunes in your locker room, do you think you could motivate them to play, nobody FC? No, you couldn't. So let's see how they get on this week. And if they don't beat Dallas, then we'll laugh at them considerably.
Yeah. And we will.
That's it for the news portion of the show, Neil. Let's go fancy heavy. Let's find out who Neil is loving in week 9 as we're getting close to the final stretch of fantasy with his fancy darling.
Hello, darling.
Now, the person I was originally loving in week 9 was going to be Marvin Jones, because Kenny Golladay is out, and we've seen that when Kenny Golladay doesn't play, Marvin Jones this season has received a bump in targets. However, Matthew Stafford is now on the COVID list, so I don't really want any piece of anyone in Detroit with Chase Daniel throwing in the ball. Not for me, thank you. So instead, the fancy darling I will have this week is another wide receiver, but this one is Jerry Jeudy. He plays, of course, for the Denver Broncos. They're playing the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons have allowed I think it's the 4th most fancy points to wide receivers. They've allowed the 2nd most receiving yards to wide receivers this season, behind only the Seattle Seahawks. Jeudy has commanded 20% of the team targets this season. He's averaging 15.6 yards per reception. Hasn't really had that big blow-up game that we've seen other rookies have, like the likes of Henry Ruggs has had a game. Justin Jefferson, of course, has been exceptional. But we haven't really seen it yet from Jeudy, but I think we will this week.
I thought Chase Daniel had a clause in his contract that he made $6 million a year and didn't play. So does that mean it gets triggered so he gets an additional $10 million just to play this game?
I think it must do.
Okay. I assume Chase Daniel is a loser, but I assume he's not the loser. So let's find out who Neil's fancy loser was this week.
Fancy loser this week. To be honest, he's one of a group that you could say is a loser. Amari Cooper. He went missing last week. Obviously, it didn't help with Ben DiNucci, whatever it is. Wasn't he the fellow in the white suit that Robert De Niro killed in Godfather Part 2?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Amari Cooper had 1.5 PPR points last week. That's one catch for 5 yards.
See, can I ask this, right? Like, and my relationship with Mike McCarthy. Like, if you've got no quarterback, surely you would try and scheme up to get your most talented players the ball as much as possible. And he didn't do that.
Looks he's inept. We saw this, the countless times, all these other coaches, look, let's scheme him open. No, go out and win one-on-one. Coach, I've ran an 8-yard comeback, but by the time I got to my 4th yard, the quarterback was toast. How about, some slants, some jet sweeps? How about some of that? You analytics-obsessed bullshitter. If we are assumed that the Steelers are well coached, their defense, it's not going to be Ben DiNucci. It's going to be either Cooper Rush or Garrett Gilbert, is it? Or Garrett Grayson or Larry Grayson or Dave Gilbert. I don't know. If we assume that they are well coached, then there's going to be absolutely nothing down for the Cowboys, and that means basically another lost week for Cooper, a lost week for Elliott, a lost week for CeeDee Lamb, and probably almost certainly a lost week for Michael Gallup. I just think at the moment, regardless of who the quarterback is, it's not looking pretty.
It's going well in Dallas. Glad he paid that running back all that money. It's going really well. Because he looks really talented, doesn't he? He looks like he's going really well.
Yeah, feed me, Zeke.
Yeah. When do we see that again? We don't, do we? Hopefully we won't see it on Thanksgiving, and hopefully we absolutely torch them. Because there's nothing... Because let's be honest, like, Robert Griffin's now a joke meme of gargantuan performances, but that beatdown he put on Romo and his Cowboys on Thanksgiving is one of the greatest moments in recent football team history.
See, it's odd as well that, probably the last great Chip Kelly moment for the Eagles came against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Because that game, just seeing the Cowboys defenders just like absolutely gassed because they were just running so many plays.
Taking oxygen on the field. Amazing stuff. Happier times, Neil. Happier times. Let's get on now and talk about our daily fancy teams of the week.
Mainz and Dutz. Daily fantasy team of the week.
Show me the money.
Show me the money indeed. Usual fare, DraftKings. We've got a lot of money. Let's see how we spend it. Neil, who's your quarterback this week?
My quarterback this week, playing against the team that allows the most fantasy points to quarterbacks in the league, namely the Atlanta Falcons, is Mr. Drew Lock. Now, Drew Lock has a slight hindrance in that he's crap. But he does like chucking the ball deep. He leads all quarterbacks in intended air yards and, average yards per attempt. The Falcons are awful. The defense is terrible. The only quarterback they stopped was Teddy Bridgewater last week. That was another weird game on Thursday night. But Drew Lock is aggressive. He's going to take advantage of the fact that his team, is defensively weak, and also has a player who seems to be mocking himself and the team for them not trading him for buttons. So I don't think that helps. He's 5,200. Lock it in.
Boo to you. Last Sunday, Neil, when did you go to bed?
Let me see. It was an early one.
I went to bed when Mike Williams caught the touchdown to put the Chargers up, I believe 21-3. I think 5 minutes earlier you'd sent a text somewhere along the lines of Drew Lock is effing terrible.
I said dog shit.
Yeah, I woke up and they'd won, and then I remembered that it wasn't Phil Rivers who meant that the Chargers were always in weird games. It was the Chargers.
Yeah.
On that note, Neil, as a man, as someone, an honourable man, I'm going to do something now, a mea culpa, so to speak. My quarterback this week, 5,700, playing the Chargers of Los Angeles, is Las Vegas' own Derek Carr, who has cost me a Just Eat takeaway for yours truly, Neil Dutton. But also has been really, really good, to be fair. He's avoided the John Gruden trigger finger, which I am obviously stunned by. I don't think it's related to the Marcus Mariota IR. It's not. It just so happens that he's been dead good. I didn't think he would be. the Raiders are frisky, and I've got a real chance to make the playoffs. And they're playing the Chargers, so at worst they'll be in a shootout, which comes down to the last play of the game, where Derek Carr will probably throw a touchdown to, I don't know, Darren Waller. 5,700. I've gone for Derek Carr.
Maybe he will eat.
That hurt me. Running back 1, Neil.
Running back 1, everyone needs him. It's Jim Robinson. He is the Jacksonville offense, especially with something called Jake Luton starting at quarterback. The Texans, as we've seen, are an abysmal run defense. Robinson is seeing something like 95% of the team running back carries and 14% of the targets. He is a workhorse. He's gone off a bit in the last few weeks, but their offense has spluttered. But I expect them to be run the ball, get out of Luton's hands quickly, and that suits players like Robinson, like Laviska Shenault. So I will take him here. He's 7,000.
Where did Jake Luton play football? College?
No idea.
Oregon State.
Oregon State.
Oh no. I don't know. It says he was educated at the University of Idaho, though. He played at Idaho and then transferred to Oregon State. There we go. There we go.
We're all
That's
learning.
how much we know about him. We know what right now he's better than Mike Glennon. So there we go.
I love hearing Americans trip over how to pronounce his surname. I've heard Luton. It's I want to call him the Hatter because obviously that's their nickname. But that's not going to
David Pleat. That's what I want to call him.
If he does throw for a touchdown, I expect to see that celebration. The weird running, dancing. But yeah,
that I've got that gif well and truly lined up for when he scores. My running back 1, Neil, is a owner of the Green Bay Packers, Dalvin Cook, who at some point during the game last week was on pace to have the greatest fantasy running back game of all time. Hey, Green Bay, maybe stop someone on the run once. Luckily, though, they're only playing Kyle Shanahan in less than 5 or 6 hours, so having no rush defense probably won't be a problem against the Shanahan, I assume.
No.
Dalvin Cook is 8,200. He's playing the Detroit Lions. I don't really care if the Lions are good or bad against the rush, but Minnesota will run the ball because that's what Minnesota do, and they will do it with Dalvin Cook, and he will get a lot of yards, 8,200.
That game last week was just a Mike Zimmer wet dream. Dalvin Cook, the first player in NFL history to score a touchdown on his team's first 4 possessions. At half-time in that game, there had been 4 drives, 2 per team, and it was 14 all. It was like, my God, from an efficiency point of view, this is statistic. But then it's just like, hey, Green Bay, tackle him.
Hey, Neil, don't think I will. Running back 2, Neil.
Running back 2 is James Conner. He's 6,900. Say the Steelers are playing the Cowboys in a game that would have meant something in the 70s. And we've seen that, unlike the Chiefs, who basically say, nah, we're going to just finish this game against a piss-poor opponent by just throwing all over them. The Steelers, it's not in their DNA. I don't think they're going to want to grind it out and literally punish the Cowboys defense, so I expect Conner to get plenty of volume. He's not an exciting player, James Conner, but he does seem to be the back of choice. So 6,900, nice.
My running back 2 is Damian Harris of the New England Patriots. In the 4 games he started, 2 of them he's got over 100 yards. He could be seen as a success on the Patriots offense, and let's be honest, that would be the only one. Why I've gone with Harris? They're playing the New York Football Jets, who stink, and I really hope, with all my fibre and my friends who are New York Jets fans, that when Joe Douglas suggested that him and Adam Gase were going to fix this together, he meant over the next 7 weeks before I send him on a jetpack to the moon.
Yeah. By saying that Adam Gase is part of the solution is to the problem, how do we get Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, Damian Harris is 5,300. He's actually very talented, and he played for Alabama. And I like him, and I think he's going to run for 100 yards and a score again. Wide receiver 1, Neil.
Wide receiver 1 is Terry McLaurin. Obviously, the football team are playing the New York Giants. McLaurin is becoming an absolute target monster. He's averaging about 12 targets a game when they've actually been competitive. He didn't get that against the Rams, but the Rams, they had people sitting on the back of Alex Smith and Kyle Allen. Now, this offense looks better in recent weeks with Kyle Allen. He seems to have unlocked the likes of Logan Thomas, but Terry McLaurin just is a special player.
Serviceable quarterback allows offense to be functional.
Who'd have thought? Obviously, this is his first game as well with now that he's a captain. The Giants are just terrible. 6,500, I've got Terry Mack.
I'm not getting into a conversation on my thoughts on Terry McLaurin because I've been there before.
You've been hurt before, yeah.
My wide receiver 1 is Stephon Diggs, Seattle Seahawks against the Buffalo Bills. I expect the Seahawks to win quite comfortably this week, actually, against Buffalo, as I think they're better. But what Josh Allen and Brian Daboll do is what I would call the anti-Mike McCarthy, because what they try and do is get Stephon Diggs the ball as much as humanly possible. It's a sensible approach, as he's infinitely their best pass catcher. If you watch any of the Patriots game, they weren't great, and Diggs had, I think, maybe 5 or 6 catches. If he was an average NFL wide receiver, he would have had 0 catches because the passes weren't great, although they said they were great. They were actually fantastic catches. So I expect Diggs to do really well against the Seattle Seahawks defense, which is garbage. He's 7,400. Wide receiver 2, Neil.
My wide receiver 2 is in the same game. I've gone for Cole Beasley. He's 5,400. He's obviously not going to get the volume, but one important thing is he plays primarily in the slot, and the Seahawks bleed production to slot receivers. So 5,400, I'll go Cole Beasley.
My wide receiver 2 is one back to the well with Chase Claypool, 5,700. After the first week, when, as Neil quite rightly pointed out, there was no real process to it, I didn't really have any money, and he so happened to get like 3 touchdowns or whatever it was and 75 billion points. Now he's much more in the offense, much more involved, and if there's a trick play about, Chase Claypool will probably be involved. I hope they do loads of trick plays against Dallas and really piss him off. It'd be cool. So I've got Chase Claypool is 5,700. Wide receiver 3, Neil.
Jerry Jeudy, 4,700. Broncos at Atlanta.
I also have Jerry Jeudy, 4,700. I think he was the best wide receiver coming out of college, and I really think he's really good. And although I do expect the Falcons to win, I do think Jeudy will be heavily involved. Who is your tight end, Neil?
So this week is Hunter Henry. As you say, the Vegas Raiders are playing the LA Chargers. Could be a shootout. Hunter Henry's getting decent volume, but he's only scored 1 touchdown. Obviously, the plus for Henry is he stayed off the injury report for the majority of the season, which is big considering where he's been in recent years. He needs to start kicking on in terms of production because we're halfway through his contract year. So if he wants the Charger to pay him or he wants someone else to pay him, but as I say, the good thing we've seen with Justin Herbert is he's getting everyone involved. It's just a question of, can Henry find the end zone, which pretty much is all we're looking for in a tight end this week, in any week. But he's 4,000.
If you're Justin Herbert, you start seeing witch doctors and other people who can lift cases as soon as humanly possible.
Well, he seems like he can do everything else.
Because that whole case thing is going to stop you being, a Super Bowl quarterback, and you don't need that in your life. In my tight end this week is TJ Hawkinson in Detroit at Minnesota. He's 5,100. Started to become more and more involved. And when you haven't got Matt Stafford and you have Chase Daniel, how about dump off the tight ends for 500, please? Yes, TJ Hawkinson, 5,100.
Yeah, I like Hawkinson. I made a mistake in 2 leagues last week of dropping him and putting Dallas Goedert in. The process, the Colts, they were playing the Colts, and the Colts were very good against tight ends, and still are, but Hawkinson had a decent game, and Goddard, I thought, would come straight into a large opportunity share, and he didn't, and went stunk. So, yeah, I got it wrong. But no, I like Hawkinson. I think, I'd be interested to see what the Lions do this off-season, as maybe he could be in line for, a bit of a bigger breakout next year.
Who's your flex, Neil?
My flex is the best running back in Arizona. That's Chase Edmonds. Finally, he's going to get a chance to stake a claim for the job full-time. The Dolphins' pass defense is excellent, but they are a bit of a run funnel. And we know that Arizona, with Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler, want to run the ball. And I think Edmonds is going to do that. He's going to help them in that regard. And also, he's going to chip in with a few catches. He's 6,800.
He is my starting running back in the UK Football League. Has been, this will be his second week because he was on a bye the week before. I'm 5-3, fourth in the division, but also fourth in the getting in the playoff section. This week I play 7-1 leader. Big week for me. So I hope you're right on Chase Edmonds. In the same game, Neil, I've got Christian Kirk of the Arizona Cardinals against the Miami Dolphins, 5,300. I expect if Brandon Jones is fit to face DeAndre Hopkins, and therefore Kirk gets a little bit freer, and at 5,300 I think it's decent value. So there we go, Christian Kirk.
I worry about Kirk because he has 4 touchdowns his last 2 games, and he's got 6 receptions.
Yeah, he's got a Mike Evans style mood about him. Who's your defense and special teams, Neil? Washington.
Daniel Jones is a turnover machine. The offensive line is terrible. The Washington defensive line is terrifying. This was a no-brainer. The Steelers, as Adam Levitan tweeted out, are the most expensive defense and special teams in DraftKings history this week.
Did you try and do a lineup with them in? I did. Couldn't do it.
No, I didn't. Nah, it was. I think that as good as they'll be, I still think Washington are going to absolutely decimate the Giants. And, I think, to quote Gerard Butler in one of his rare "I'm not shouting, I'm saying this normal voice" quotes, it's going to be biblical.
I've gone, my defence and special teams goes directly against your quarterback, Neil, and that's the Falcons, who are playing Drew Lock. Drew Lock is poo, and just loves lobbing it, which causes many chances for interceptions. And the Falcons are at least trying to win games now, with Raheem Morris, I think is their coach at the moment. Thought they were really good defensively against the Panthers. Really, a few Curtis Samuel, weird plays. They got at Teddy Bridgewater all the time. They were constantly in the backfield, so I expect them to do well against Denver. And also they're only 2,500. Which is a big win as well. So let's recap, Neil. Who's your quarterback?
Drew Lock.
Mine is just its own Derek Carr. Running back 1.
Jim Robinson.
I've got Dalvin Cook. Running back 2.
John Connor, whatever his name is, the Terminator.
John Connor, the Terminator. Damian Harris for me. Wide receiver 1.
Terry McLaurin.
I've got Stephon Diggs. Wide receiver 2.
Cole Beasley.
I've got TJ Hawkinson. Wide receiver 3.
Hey Judy.
I've also got Jerry Judy. Tight end.
Hunter Henry.
For TJ Hawkinson. Flex.
The chase is on for Edmonds.
I've gone for Kirk. And defence and special teams, Neil.
The football team.
He's a bad man. I've got the Falcons. Neil, before next week, where can people catch you?
Catch me on Twitter at EndUp13. Obviously, between now and then, come next Tuesday, I'll be tweeting about Bake Off furiously. You can find me my stuff over at Rotoviz, at Numberfire, and also at Ravenswire. I'm sure I had something else to say. Another special announcement. Oh no, that's you.
Yeah, that for me this week. I will also be heard, or already be heard, on Bet Bites, which is a podcast about betting across multiple sports. You've got 90 seconds to give your 3 bets for the week, and it goes across many sports. I will be honest, it took me 7 goes to do mine, and I kept on laughing and then ballsing it up. It was hilarious. This week I picked the Titans to beat the Bears. I picked the Falcons to beat the Broncos and the Seahawks to beat the Bills. All there's such luminaries, Neil, because I like this kind of thing. Kevin Hatchard, who does all the Bundesliga stuff. Derek Clark, who's a Bolton Wanderers commentator. Matt Jones, ex-Radio City Talk. And Naz Premji as well. So I was well impressed. So there we go. It's Bet Bites from Sports Betting Media. Available on all good podcast platforms.
And the bad ones?
Probably. Neil, that's it. 55 to 56 minutes of absolute joy. And in that note, these top guys are out. We'll see you next week.